Welcome to Corporate Law Lab. I'm Neil Taylor, Director of the Corporate Law Center at the University of Cincinnati. Today is another episode in our sometimes regular Business of the Law series. We're joined today by Kent Wellington, who's the market leader of the Cincinnati office of Bricker Graydon, and his partner and colleague, Lisa Diedrichs, who's head of the business industry group at the firm. Welcome. We also have Greta Propp with us. Greta is one of our corporate law fellows, and she's a 1L, and Greta and Kent went to the same undergrad, but probably not at the same time.
Different times, a few years apart.
So Kent, let's start with you and just a little bit of background about who you are. I guess first question, why did you decide to become a lawyer?
I'm from small towns throughout Ohio, and the lawyers in the little towns I grew up were the leaders in town, and they found ways to get things done, whether it was to save a building or to get a school levy passed or, of course, to take care of their clients, and I admired those folks.
So did you know you wanted to be a lawyer when you went to undergrad at Kenyon?
Pretty close, yeah. I admired those guys. They coached me when I was a kid, and so I was kind of leaning in that direction.
You double majored in econ and English?
Yes.
How was you went, from what I can see, it looks like you went straight through from Kenyon to Ohio State Law School?
Yes.
And there's so many things we have to forgive you for here, just in the beginning. How was the transition for you from going direct from small liberal arts school to the big place and into the law curriculum, which is probably a little bit different than what you'd experienced?
Yeah, I went from 1,600 students to 55,000 students. So there was always a place to play basketball after law school. I thought the transition was relatively, I kind of view law school as kind of graduate liberal arts. All those things you learn in your philosophy class, in your econ class, or your English class, you kind of apply those. Well, you just do it with advocacy.
So were you an athlete at Kenyon?
I was on the teams.
Okay.
I did not play as much as the coaches decided I should play, but
yeah, but I think maybe that gives you a bit more. It gives you a bit more time management skills.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, for a lot of
Sure.
for a lot of people, going from undergrad to law school is from
Right.
It's fairly easy to drinking from a fire hose. Do you think that helped your transition?
Definitely. I was never not in a sport, so you had to be super disciplined. We'd go to practice and we would rush up to dinner, and then we would all go to the library, and you do that 5 days a week, and you have some fun on the weekend. But I think it definitely applies here. I hear a lot, if we have some people are kind of struggling, they should do less. They should do less in the community. They should do less here. I kind of think it's the opposite. You got to prime the pump a little bit, do things that are purposeful, take care of the clients at work, take care of things at home, and then put some of the other things aside. And then once you kind of get that into that healthy rhythm, whether you're in law school or whether you're a lawyer, I think you start to hit the ball better.
Well, and if I look at how much both of you are involved in, does that kind of permeate throughout the firm, or at least in the leadership ranks, of being involved in a lot of other things besides just being a lawyer and having a family?
Yeah, that's what attracted me to the firm. I wasn't from Cincinnati, but we had 4 federal district court judges. We had a vice mayor. We had a senator. We had a governor. So you had a lot of folks involved with public service. You had people running mental health organizations. And I think that through line has continued. Nelson Schwab wrote the Vision 2000 plan for the city. I could go on and on. I think you'd see that today in our firm, families and their communities. And it makes for a better life. What I find is the people who just work all the time, they're not that happy and they leave. We want people who stick around.
Going back to law school, what stood out from your law school experience? When just looking back on it now, what do you think about it, law school, and say, I'm really glad I did that, or I wish I'd done more of this?
The football team was terrible when I was at Ohio State. So that's changed dramatically.
My senior year at Indiana, we were 0-11. How many of those years have you had?
We had Jimmy Jackson. The basketball team was good. So I had my first wife, my late wife, was a 5th-year senior. So I got tickets right on the floor. So that was probably the highlight of my law school career. But I think as like anything in life, what sticks out are the relationships you form. I mean, a day doesn't go by that I'm not texting with my Kenyan basketball buddies or on a Zoom call with my Kenyan football buddies. My law school friends know about some of the stuff I'm involved with in the community, and some of those guys are involved, even if they're in Atlanta, Georgia. People, professors, you remember.
We'll come back to you when we talk about joining Graydon straight out of law school because you both did that. And Lisa, let's just talk to you about some of the same questions. Why did you decide to be a lawyer?
I started off being told I should be a lawyer by my family 'cause I was argumentative, which I think is probably 50% of I mean, I would imagine 50% of law students are like, "I was told I'd be a." Oh, and then I got that in my mind and I started. By the time I went to law school, the reason that I was taking that path was because I thought I wanted to be involved in politics. So I was a poli-sci major. I worked, interned for a couple of politicians. I thought it was really fun. All back of the house. I did not want to run for anything. I wanted to support that. I got disabused of that notion pretty early on, but I was still happy to be in law school for different reasons. I think law school showed me a different path that I could take with that degree. And then I summered at Graydon my first and second summer. So I got thrown pretty quickly into the law firm.
So I think that's one of the interesting things. You show up at law school with an idea of what you think being a lawyer is or what you're going to do with the law degree. Changes for so many. It won't change for Greta because she's a corporate law fellow.
Well, she
You-
picked right off the bat.
Yeah.
So that's smart.
But, I think, when I showed up here, it was like I thought I was going to be an environmental lawyer because that was going to be about, baby seals and polar bears, and then find out, oh, it's administrative law, be a litigator instead. So I think for the students listening, do keep an open mind when you get here about what it is you might want to do with this degree. So that wasn't a question, just a statement. So for you, how was the transition to law school? Did you take time in between or did you go straight through?
I did not. My resume is deceiving. I graduated early because I had credits to graduate early. So I took summer classes. I did a summer study abroad program in London, which was fantastic. I got to work for a member of parliament that summer. And so I got all these extra credits. And I only had to do credits or part-time that fall. And then I graduated in '03, technically, a class of '04. So I stuck around, no beer drinking at all, of course, all in college. But no, I worked for a poli-sci professor of mine for that semester in good old days.
Sounds great. Let's go back. So how was the transition?
So
to
the
law
transition,
school?
sorry, I didn't even finish the second part of your question.
I'm not sure I asked it yet.
I treated it like a job. That was my approach a bit to law school. I knew pretty quickly that I wanted to practice and I was ready to kind of like get to that. I'd always worked. Like I've worked every summer. I've worked during school years. I worked in undergrad. I worked in law school in the summer. So I was ready to get to work, for lack of a better term. So I did treat it a little bit like a job. The transition was, I kind of loved part of it because I loved all the theory. I don't think it was overly difficult, but I remember thinking how many smart people I was with and that it was a lot harder to get, top of your class than I thought it was going to be when I first started. So many smart kids.
Yeah. I remember asking one of my friends about 6 weeks in, this is all really interesting, but I wonder when they're going to start teaching the law. Because, if I didn't have any lawyers in my family, so my view of the law was like watching LA Law and Verdict date my terribly, where they sit around and talk about, oh, the precedents on this are, and it's like, other than a few, who really sits around talking about precedent? That's what libraries and associates.
Yeah.
I guess we don't have libraries anymore, but
Electronic.
yeah. And then just answered. Love it when you guys read ahead. You both joined Graydon straight out of law school. It was at that time called Graydon Head and Ritchie, which it had been for many, many, many years, right?
Yes.
And take this in whatever order you want. What attracted you to the firm?
I was here the summer of 1990. The Reds had gone wire to wire, won the World Series. The Bengals had just been Super Bowl. The Mapplethorpe exhibit was in town at the Contemporary Arts Center, so that was all the rage. Pete Rose, I snuck over across the street and saw Pete getting sentenced for tax evasion with Rob Spiegel. I looked a little bit like Forrest Gump in the back of the courtroom, and my first wife, my late wife, was from Chicago, and I was a small town guy, and I said, "Hey, babe, this is happening." So we stuck around, and it was a great decision for different reasons than I thought. Not World Series and Super Bowls, but for a lot of reasons.
One day.
And you started as a litigator and remained a litigator all the
Yeah.
way through?
Started as litigator. First decade, tried a bunch of cases. First chaired a lot of jury trials, pretty much in all the state and federal courts all around. So that was a great experience, something that young people really don't get an opportunity to do as much today, although I've got a few who work with me that were being aggressive to get them in the courtroom. But it's something you got to really be proactive on. It happened a little more naturally for me, although my first case was for a guy who worked in the file room who sold a house in Delhi and was defrauded. So we found a way to get in there. And then the litigation route, just I do a lot of employment work, teeth on some large layoff cases the first year. So I've always done employment litigation. There was time where I was a media guy and I was a healthcare employment lawyer and litigator. I was an IP person for a period of time. And it's a little bit like Lisa. Lisa worked in our labor employment group. She worked in our litigation group and is now in our corporate group. This is kind of where the liberal arts side of things comes into play. Even if you want to be a corporate fellow and a corporate person, there's a lot of benefit to tasting a little more broadly from the smorgasbord, just one area.
Well, and when you say you want to be a corporate lawyer,
Mhm.
that can...
I mean, just about anything.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, I defined it broadly. When I was in law school, I used to joke that there were two types of people. There were plant eaters and meat eaters. And the meat eaters kind of became the litigators. They liked mock trial and moot court. They loved it. The plant eaters hated that. I mean, that was the worst part of the experience. They kind of morphed into more of the transactional stuff. Now, that's an oversimplification, but you kind of see that. If you ask most corporate folks, they would say the last place they want to be is in a courtroom.
And with young students, shouldn't say young, with first years, whenever they say to me, "Oh, I don't want to do litigation," I always say, why? Because the part that bothers me about it, that people shut themselves off from that whole career path, is because, like me, they've watched TV and they know that the guy on Suits can do this incredible, closing argument that somebody else wrote for him and he memorized. And that's just not real life. And I always say to them, go try it before you say you absolutely don't want to do it.
Well, and the other thing that's important, that every one of us involved in litigation avoid. If you don't think you're involved in litigation, then you're not involved yet. But the point is, you never want to be. I never want one of my contracts having to call Ken, say, "Ugh, got a huge fight over something I drafted." So if you don't understand at least how something will be ultimately resolved by a court process, some of the nuances that judges care about, then bring your clients into service, because my job is to avoid ever having to call Ken and have him look at one of my contracts.
Just make sure the dispute resolution clause is Cincinnati, Ohio. We'll take care of it.
How do you get your departments to talk to each other? Because that's something that, I used to find when I was at GC, especially, I could help the business avoid litigation when they involved me. Too often they would show up with a fully baked deal, and I would have to see how much of the stuff they gave away they needed to walk back. Does that happen inside the firm? And how do you get each other to talk to?
So here's my answer, and we haven't gotten to culture yet, but in this conversation, but it has a lot to do there. I do deals with lawyers on the other side that can't get their partners onto them, subject matter expert, benefits, you name it, and they're regularly complimented on not having that issue. So I think part of it is just the culture of accountability. We're all partners of each other's, so we are accountable to one another to be responsive. The other pieces were in the office, pretty present. So if someone doesn't respond to my email, they're at risk of seeing me in the hallway and me asking them about that email. Or I can just march down to an office and say, "Oh my gosh, I'm sorry, but I need to look at this turnaround." From the corporate side, I grew up a litigator. We can talk about that but from the corporate side, things are on paces that are dictated not by you. You know, hence world and in litigation, it comes up fast. Don't get me wrong, but you have a deadline. You know when it's going to be dictated by rules, and there's a schedule, and or you've agreed to it, and you can get some extensions. My clients, if they want something done, they want it done yesterday frequently. And so I'm constantly apologizing to my colleagues about like the turnaround. But the beauty is they know I would do the exact same thing for them. So I show up to somebody's office and I say, I really need to look at this. Our culture is to be responsive, understand that it's a firm client and that you're all responsible for servicing the client the best way possible.
So the question that I skipped over before you went into firm culture, and let's go there. Was that what attracted you to the firm?
Total dumb luck that I ended up at the law firm. I feel so lucky. As I was thinking about talking today, so much of this is dumb luck, right? I went to law school. I was going to go into politics, and I tried not to watch the news. So completely different. But I joined Graydon, Head and Ritchie because a family friend was a labor and employment attorney there. And I'm the first lawyer in my family, and I had no idea what I was doing. And I started there as a summer. I did interview at another firm. I don't remember thinking each other very well. Like they would pass me off during an interview, and it seemed like they were like, "Hi, I'm Joan. Meet Lisa." And I remember thinking like, "Oh my God, you're down the hallway. Shouldn't you know that you're Joan?" But I left it alone. That's not a real name. And so I didn't get that feeling when I interviewed at Graydon. But also, I had such
What was it about the experience that made you go, this is the place for
lot, but boiled down the people. I enjoyed people that I met. There are like true friendship. I have true friends at our firm, like some of my best friends I work with, which is such a blessing to be able to show up in the office, get to walk down the hall and talk to a best friend, and go back to work, and then go on and call my best friend and go back to work. So I gained a lot of those relationships really early in my career, and that's what's created a lot of the stickiness with those same people. I think Ken would probably say something group and friends, but it was the people and we had fun. I mean, it was a summer, so they kind of do and take you out and happy hour. What a great way to meet the lawyers in the firm because when you really start, you're in your group doing the work with you don't get to know every other attorney, throughout the firm. So that was a big benefit of the summer.
What was the culture like when you joined the firm? And has it changed over time and for the better?
Yeah. I think it's always been good. I think I've always been able to be myself. If that wasn't the case, I probably would have been somewhere else. I'm in my 35th year here at Bricker Graydon. And even with the merger, I knew a bunch of those guys. I played basketball with them in Columbus. Even if I didn't know them specifically, I knew the type of people they were. So that was important. I think, when you're looking for a place, you want to go to a place where you can be yourself. And that could include a lot of things. It could include the diversity of the place you go. We have an office, an Over the Rhine office that we give away to folks in the community who move the needle. And I was just looking at a list we were talking about this morning. The last 15 users, 9 of them were diverse users. Now, we didn't plan for that, but that's great. It worked out that way. We have everything from Muslim, Catholic, Baptist prayer groups to rapper release parties. We got a dance troupe that uses a space when they lost their ability to use it in Evanston. I don't think there's many firms that have things like that. And that is also one of the first things that came up on the executive committee agenda when we merged was renewal of that lease. And it's been renewed twice. So I think it says a lot about what this firm continues to believe about the importance of our place in the community.
How long have you been involved in the management?
Probably 20 years.
Why did you want to do that?
I was just kind of logical. I'm kind of a people guy. You have different people in management.
People
kind
guy.
of a
There's
people
the
guy.
understatement of this.
Yeah, that's my thing. So you need to have a little of that on the executive committee. You got to have the numbers people too. If you just have all numbers people and no people, that's not good, and vice versa as well. So, I deepened those relationships. Some of my best friends, we worked on petty issues, the merger and space issues and those kinds of things. So it's also important you work at a place where you like the people you're working with. Today, we had a call with all our offices, and what I led with was, we had this new entity called BG Pivot, which is a consulting arm of the firm that allows us to do more. We've got so many great relationships throughout the state and beyond. And we said, let's go out and find those people who we like. Let's go work with more people that we like, people who are really moving things forward, and let's see how we can help them. Start there, as opposed to I'd really like to do this practice area. Why don't we start with people and then move from there? And that's what we talked a lot about today. We're these different people out there who we're not working with currently, but we would love to.
Lisa, similar question. You're part of firm management. Was that an on purpose thing, or somebody grab you and say you have to be part of firm management?
Oh boy. So a little bit of both. I mean, you have to be willing. You can't actually script it law firm. I was a practice group leader at the time of the merger. And with the merger, I became the district group leader, which is 4 different practice groups, and on the executive committee as a voting member. And I did that. I really like it, actually. Parts of it are a lot, but for the most part, get a lot of, oh, I get a lot of fulfillment is the right word from doing it, and so it was a little bit of both. And I'm growing into it constantly. I mean, I'm always growing, but
I had a saying at the firm I started at that was attributed to one of the founding partners. Everyone disagreed which one it was, but they all agreed that it was said was that the people interested in firm management be kept out of firm management.
Yeah.
Just curious how you react to that in firm management.
Yeah, there's some people who are probably better working in other areas, and there are others who you think are going to be terrible at firm management, turned out to be pretty good at it. So it's just really a division of labor, but it's like any aptitude. But I think there's a lot of areas, for your law students, I think there's a lot of areas that they would enjoy. We've got a growing estate planning group. Our firm started as an estate planning firm 160 years ago. And I really like our estate planning people, and they deal with people. And I've got aging parents and estate planning issues. And if I came back as a young lawyer today, I wouldn't hesitate to go to Bricker Graydon and work in the estate plan. Real estate, I'd say the same thing. Working with Lisa in the corporate group, I'd say the same thing. Tax, maybe not my thing, but there's a lot of areas I think you can enjoy. You kind of bring that people perspective.
We have a student who, he's a 2L now, who met with me last year and told me that his goal was to make me love tax as much as he does. Said, you need a new goal, and soon, because
you either have it or you don't.
Work.
You either have it or you don't.
Are you going to like Greta asking questions?
I was just about to do a really cool segue.
All right.
Right? The segue was coming where I was like, you both alluded to your involvement in the community, and Greta has some more questions that she wanted to ask. So we were going to do a really smooth transition.
Finally, some quality questions.
Thanks for helping me do that. Go ahead.
All right. Stage is mine. I was wondering, I wanted to talk more about community. Very important to you. With the Caring Wellington Foundation and Saturday, your work with the small riverfront park, alloyed company. So how do you, both individually and as a firm, foster positive Bricker?
Well, I think it first starts by getting involved. Move. I mean, the first things I did, I knew nothing about. I got involved with mental retardation and developmental disabilities. I didn't know anything about it, but by the time I spent 10 years on a board, I learned a lot. And I learned that in many respects, these are the real underdogs in town and people we should help. There was a organization that wanted to increase voter turnout and starts with civics with the kids. And I got involved in that one as well. And I could go on. One was to reduce gunshot violence, et cetera. And each time you get involved in one of those things, even if it doesn't work out, and a couple of them we sunsetted, you meet people. And those people show up in different areas. And then when you get to be older, like me, you've kind of found a few of those things. And, I've got 2, main family ministries, we call them. One we picked and one picked us. And the being a basketball guy, the Saturday Hoops program is in 22 years, and I'll be there tomorrow morning at a time when our young people in the city are struggling, in part because of their own bad decisions, in part because of lack of opportunities. Regardless, there's a big group of people, a lot of lawyers, who give up their Saturdays to move the needle for those folks. The other one that picked me is the cancer area. So our family went through a cancer journey that didn't end so well, but we now have a foundation that sends women living with breast cancer on vacations. That's the Karen Wellington Foundation. And being a lawyer has been great. Being a lawyer at Bricker Graydon has been super great because I can walk down the hall and talk to smarter people, and we have chapters in 13 cities, and we have 40 funds, and we reach over 1,000 women a year. And I can be bold and aggressive with that, knowing that there's people like Lisa and other lawyers down the hall who will tell me to pump the brakes or to hit the gas. And I think it's exceptional, I think, to be able to do that in a lawyer environment. It's also important to note that this city, Cincinnati, the greater Cincinnati area, has been a big catalyst. You know, people know how to get their jobs done here and have fun. Lisa and I are going to be tonight with all of our lawyers and our spouses in Dayton having a party up there. We're going to get to meet them a little more. So if you can, I say this all the time, but it's true, but if you can be in a place where you can have fun with your friends on a Friday night and you can get up and save the world on a Saturday morning, if you string enough of those weeks together, by the time you get to be an older guy like me, you will have lived a pretty good life. And it's because you're balancing it all out.
What about you, Lisa?
Okay. I'm trying to remember the original question. No, that's okay. I think I have enough of it.
Okay.
You're fine.
That's okay.
So, first, I was really attracted to the law firm, and I was really, again, at dumb luck, I joined. But then, you stay for a reason, right? And one of the reasons I stayed was that we have placed a very high value on community involvement, and it's for so many different reasons. I mean, partly because we all expect each other to care about our community too. And that's just kind of like, those are the types of people that we attract that also fit in with us, right? That happens. But the firm really supports it. And I enjoyed, I had just moved back to Cincinnati when I joined the law firm, and I enjoyed all of the opportunities to get involved in community-oriented events that were things I had never heard of, we were events for organizations I'd never heard of. And it gave me an opportunity to kind of like get out there and see what the options were in Cincinnati. I've done some, not nearly enough. There's still time, but my current passions, I'm the chair of our family foundation. And so I really get to feel very lucky that I get to learn about a lot of our nonprofits through that and support them, try and kind of garner other support for them, right? Through friends and family and other avenues. My current number one community involvement is the Cincinnati Parks Foundation. So we're raising money to our park system. And I've been involved in that organization for quite some time. I'm repairing it starting next year. And the firm is very supportive of me, both from time spent. The firm, sponsors events for me and backup for that. And people show up to the events for me, right? So I really appreciate that as well. I think the coolest thing, really what Kent said about our city, we are such a philanthropic city, and you don't even, it takes a little bit to appreciate it, I think, but we really punch above our weight class in what people are willing to give of their time and treasure to our city and to the efforts of all these types of organizations. What I am and hope to do.
Yeah, these 12 chapters we have with Karen's Living with Breast Cancer Foundation, we started none of them. 12 cities looked at Cincinnati and said, wow, that's pretty cool. Maybe we can do that in New England or South Florida or Kalamazoo, Michigan, Chicago or San Francisco. And we say you can probably have vacation homes and you probably have cancer. But again, that's an example of greater Cincinnati leading the way.
Yeah, and that's really nice to hear someone, myself being new to Cincinnati. Yeah, like it makes me excited to grow in my legal career and hopefully. Please don't say it's mine. I don't think I have an accent. Okay, what is it? I looked up on Google how to say that, and they must have wronged me.
You are not the first, and you will not be the last.
They must have wronged me. That's pretty funny. You manage that Bricker is like really great in understanding about giving time to the so how do you, like, manage your time between giving
Your
Oh,
mom, go for it.
yeah, to young kids as well. I mean, um, I wish there was like a silver bullet that I could say, like, this is how balanced your life, and here's the answer. The answer is there is no answer, and it doesn't apply to every single person. But sometimes you lean in, sometimes you have the chance to lean out on one thing, and that gives you an opportunity to do something else, and put your efforts towards that. It's a balancing act. It's staying organized, and actually, I think you were saying this at the very beginning. Being busy helps me get it all done. I work to my pace that I have to work to for everything. So that's kind of how I have the opportunity to do all of those things. I also have a very supportive husband who picks up the slack when I need him to. I think when you're working, you have to have that. And I'm a very good delegator, so I outsource just about everything I can. It tends to outsource.
Good. When we went through breast cancer in my 30s, so that was the breast cancer decade. And people are always like, well, how did you get through that? And I said, faith and a sense of humor. And I'm not sure which of the two is more important. And I think the same can be applied for these crazy lives we live as lawyers. And you've got to have a little bit of a sense of humor. People are going to behave badly all around you. It's not until you start behaving badly that that's a problem. And as lawyers, we are problem solvers. We are problem solvers. And all of the problems in this community, all of them, the little bitty ones and the big ones, are fixable. It's just a factor of work. And the key is finding enough lawyers and non-lawyers and others who are willing to work together and collaborate and find time on their Saturdays or whenever to try to fix those problems.
Lisa, you were saying how there's like no silver bullet. The class I teach here is associated with the externships. We just did the module on time management. And, I'm not, don't suffer from imposter syndrome a lot, but I definitely did when trying to explain to students what the keys to effective time management are, because I'm 35 years into this and I'm not quite sure what my strategy is. I work when I'm working and play when I'm playing, and that's about all I can come up with
You
as a
have to not
strategy.
do one when you should be doing the other, and having that discipline, I think, is the number.
Yeah.
I mean, and let this not be a commercial against private practice, but it's not for the faint of heart. Be sure. I mean, regularly at night, I'm logged back in, checking email. I'm not doing the heavy lift. I absolutely have to, but just kind of clearing the plate for the next day, clearing the emails, making sure I handled all of my administrative burdens. I do a lot of obligations to the firm. So, staying on top of it. And then I have a rule for myself, and I have a rule at the firm. Every email gets answered in 24 hours. My rule is 12 for myself. So, and it's not that I have the project done, and it's not that I've finished whatever, but I have said, Steve, I'm working on it. And question yet, because you're the delegatees, but I am never allowing a ball not to be moved forward. If I'm the bottleneck, I move it to somebody else. And I say, push this forward for as long as you can until I can pick it back up with you. Um, that's been my strategy. Added benefit of adding leverage to our law firms.
Yeah, I think that at a young age, I kind of realized that the goal is not to be comfortable. You don't grow when you're comfortable. You grow when you push yourself. And sometimes that means it's erratic, and you're doing my timesheets when I'm walking home from work late at night. But that's also a pretty good feeling as well. So it's less about comfort and more about what are we accomplishing? What connections are we making? What difference are we making? And if at the end of my life, if I wasn't comfortable, that's okay. But if I didn't play the more important game as hard as I could, and that most important game, I believe, is how much good can we do before we're gone? That's the game. That's the scoreboard. And if you're just searching for comfort, that scoreboard is going to tally a little less. Now, that you have to be smart. You got to eat right. You got to get rest. Can't abuse drugs and alcohol, all those types of things. But, the more I have found, the more I pushed myself, and I learned this playing a couple sports in college, the more I pushed myself, the more I achieved. Now, I also made a bunch of mistakes and had bad days, but when you get to be my age, I'm kind of still that same kid who feels like he needs to go to practice after school for some of the same types of reasons. We're just, as lawyers, we just do it in different environments. You're in the courtroom or you're doing a deal or negotiating. It all kind of works together, and hopefully it bleeds into the community, and hopefully it bleeds into your families, and your families get involved in that. And after a while, as I look at my kids who are now 30 and 28, I kind of like the trajectory they're going into. Neither of them are on the comfort pipeline.
I had a senior partner with say, be careful about fur-lined ruts. I said, what in the world are you talking about? He said, it's really easy to get in a rut, stay in it because it's comfortable. So hopefully John was happy when Europe that I wasn't.
Yeah.
But you have to, but I think something to look out for. You know, if you find yourself like, oh, this is all kind of comfortable and easy and I've got it all figured out, look out.
Yeah, you got to get out of the rut. Definitely, you got to get out of those. I mean, life ends for all of us, so you can't put everything.
Today.
I think it's but you got to move. You got to move. So last year, my wife and I and a dog, we took 24 days and we hit the road. We went, national parks and went to Banff, and I think I took 5 days off work. I had 3 weekends and a Labor Day in there, and then you can work remotely these days. We did similar thing this year for 17 days, and no balls were dropped. Client calls were returned, but we also hiked some great areas and ate some good food and met some new people, and that's getting out of the rut. And whenever I come back to the office, having sharpened the saw, I'm feeling a lot better.
You alluded a few times to the merger because I kept referring to it as Graydon, Head, and Ritchie because that's what it was when I left Cincinnati 5 years ago. But it's now Bricker Graydon and has been for only about 2 years now. Is that right? So how important was culture in deciding to merge Bricker Eckler with Graydon?
It was what we did the most diligence on for a very long time before we even got to deal terms. Needed to make sure going to be for people. The law firm industry, we don't make widgets, we don't sell widgets, we sell people and talent. And if those people aren't happy, then you're failing at our jobs. So it was really, really important for us, and we vetted it thoroughly.
What would have been a red flag that would have had you go, no, this isn't for us? What were you looking to avoid, or what were you looking to go to?
I would say, for my answer, the accountability that I was talking to you about for our corporate transactions and just having we are partners serving firm clients. That mentality, when we were courting each other, dating as it were, we were already meeting counterparts and having the opportunity to cross-sell each other. Talk a little bit about this, but Bricker had very different practice areas than Graydon did. But it really amplified our ability to cross-sell service to clients and become more full service as a firm. So we took advantage of that early, and we're setting up matters at the respective firms for each other's clients to do that type of work. Kind of just would give a referral to another lawyer who's an expert in a field, regardless. I do anyway for certain clients when we need to. And the care that they took with the other firm's clients, and I think the care that saw us take with was really important, and that would have been a huge red flag to me if someone was non-responsive or they didn't give a good answer, didn't give good attention to those clients. That would have been bad.
Every other firm, maybe not every other firm, but most of the big firms in town been through a series of mergers over time. That wasn't true for your firm? This was like the big one?
Yeah, we had been around over 150 years, and Bricker and Eckler had been around for 80 or so years. So this was really a merger of equals and similar cultures. Now, we weren't equal in our skill sets. They were very public sector. We were very private sector. We now is both of us, and that worked really well. In fact, it worked far better than I even thought. Probably because I didn't know everyone there, and now I work with people on teams that have been a great addition.
You must have had other people knocking on the door going, showing up saying, we're big firm X, we want a presence in Cincinnati. How about we swallow you? Did you ever consider it?
That happens all the time. It's not just, and it's not just in law.
Right.
Look around. You have a lot of folks who are merging and growing. I was probably a little bit agnostic as to whether we got bigger or not, but I've certainly seen the benefits of it. I've got more tools in my toolkit now to help people. We've got more problem-solving tools, and I get to interact with more people in different communities, and I've lived all over the state of Ohio, so it's been fun for me to kind of reconnect with people who I played hockey against in elementary school in Toledo, or other people who reconnect. So I think it's a positive, but you have to do your due diligence to make sure it's going to be a good fit. You don't want to just grow for growth's sake.
How did you deal with overlap? Were synergies important? Not important at all? I mean, it sounds like the big synergy was positive, not negative. I guess I'm speaking tongues now because I've done a deal synergy based, which was how many people do we get to fire at the end of this, putting these two companies together, full side of it. How did you look at it and how did it work out?
Well, we had to do a lot less of that type of cutting than I thought we would have had to do, because when you have the overlap, and basically you get in and you just start playing and you see who's good at what, and you see who might be better in some other area, and you work that. Practice groups, there weren't a whole lot of conflicts. There weren't a whole lot of, there was an area, we did a fair amount of, public records work for the media. And that obviously was going to be a bit of an issue when you represent the public sector. So, but hopefully those relationships with people, as they change and as people move to other firms, if they're good relationships, they continue. And that's what's important in the long run, not what law firms have on.
No yelling on. Oh, are we live?
Yeah,
Okay.
you're live. It's
Awesome.
okay.
Good.
We'll clean it up.
Okay. How would you describe your leadership philosophy individually? And how do you think of yourself? Lisa, we can start with you.
Okay. Leadership philosophy. I like to think I lead by example. That's the goal. I hope that the people that I work with see that I work hard and are respect me for that. And understand that I'm in the trenches. Come to me, my door's always open, but I'm along for the ride with them at all times. I think one of the main tenets of my philosophy, though, is to kindly honest. I don't think it serves anybody for there to be, lack of a better word, sugarcoating of issues. People are constantly improving. People need to constantly improve. I need to constantly improve. I hope people are honest with me, and I feel like I have a pretty good trusting relationship with folks so that they can be. But I do the same for others. Like, hey, that wasn't your best moment. Hey, you don't write emails like that. Hey, I understand that you wanted a break, but look at your hours. We're going to need to get back to work. Those types of things are my job to make sure I'm managing my group. I just try and be very honest with kindness and with understanding, but it doesn't serve anybody. Avoid conflict. And fascinatingly, you'd think lawyers would, not conflict averse, but when it comes to law firm management, it can be not true. So, not looking for conflict, looking for constant, that we're all doing right for business partners, staff who we pay, and all of those.
Like growing up playing sports, and I found like some of them would tailor their critique to certain players, and you find like either of you do that in terms of talking that you work with. How does that differ? Department.
I mean, we're in a people business.
Yeah.
So 1,000%,
Yeah.
you have to read the room and know how someone will react best,
Mhm.
right? I find myself doing that all the time. The biggest challenge is if somebody's new and you're still learning their style, and so you kind of approach it one way, and you're like, "Oh, that wasn't the plan," and kind of pivot. Yes, you have to constantly. Again, we are in the people business. I'm cultivating talent. That is my job as a lawyer at our firm is to have our talent, have every tool they need, have the motivation, and enjoy enough to.
Yeah, I think you need some people in any workplace who are people who see the glass as half full. Because the person who sees the glass half full and the one who sees it as half empty are both correct. But there's a big difference between that. So that my leadership style is really to kind of focus on the big things and point out to people the big things that are going right when people may be all focused and conflicting on the little thing. Because that is where your focus needs to be. It's easy as lawyers to get mired in the details. And when you're doing a merger, having a bunch of lawyers doing that instead of wearing the business hat, entrepreneurial hat, that boy, this could be cool hat, you're worried about what could go wrong. And if you got too many people wearing that hat, that creates paralysis. So, I think we're always going to be open to getting better and growing and adding more talent. I hope we are. I mean, that's always, I think, what you want to do. And it also has the benefit for people like me of introducing you to new people. And to me, that's exciting and fun, and I learn a lot that way. I also think you need, ideally, to work with people who are give first and not me first. You will run into many me first people. But if your team is going to grow and if you're going to do things that are best for the team, you need to have a little bit of that give first mindset. That includes sharing work, sharing credit, pointing out to people when someone has done something well, even if you were involved in it. Identify those 2 or 3 other people who don't get the limelight. I get way too much credit for about everything I do in my life, but there are so many other people who have actually been instrumental in that, and I think they know it because I tell them regularly.
I always tried when running teams to take credit for thing, take ownership of every failure.
Yeah.
Because, if I'm out there giving credit to Greta for how wonderfully she put together this interview, it doesn't matter that I worked on it.
Yeah.
Everybody knows that.
Yeah. I was really impressed when we did the merger about how gracious and kind the Bricker and Eckler folks were, how they bent over backwards, how they came in with a steady dose of humility. And we all kind of had this attitude, well, to the extent we do things different, let's just study it and figure out which way is best for our team. And that's really healthy if you get that kind of mindset. And that again comes back to leadership. You've got to have leaders who are thinking that way and not thinking me first or what this means to me.
Have you ever been able to turn a person that had a me first agenda into someone that learns to give first?
Or those Scrooge,
No, just
Grinch,
like
sir.
Well, so the answer to that is yes. And so when it says give first, my thought process is firm first. That's what we strive for in the group of leaders that I interact with, other industry regularly. We're fantastically firm first and helping each other, our issues, and then saying, how does that impact the whole firm? I think that's an education. The phrase rising tide raises all ships. That is true. You can be as me first as you want about holding on to something or getting credit for something. But if everybody acts in the best interest of the firm, the tide raises for all of us, and you're not fighting over a small pie. There's just much bigger pieces for everybody. That's very comp. I'm thinking comp in my mind. I'm thinking finances in my mind. But we are a business, and we're not all doing this just for our health, other than Kent. And so we do this for our job, and everybody wants to get paid fairly and all that jazz. So the firm first, if you can become firm first, really improves everybody's experience, everybody's compensation, and the culture overall. Don't struggle that much with that, to be perfectly honest.
I mean, if the culture is right, people that don't fit in it.
And that is the truth. They just kind of aren't
Correct.
given credence. That's an attitude. It's just kind of like not accepted and not folded into part of the main.
Yeah. I say this all the time, want us to create a firm, an office where people want to be. It's where you work from or what group you're in or those types of things. have some of the freedom. And I think with mergers, one of the interesting things is, particularly people of my vintage, thing that we're all concerned about is our freedom. How is merging with someone going to else affect my freedom? I've gotten pretty good at what I'm doing, and am I going to have to march to the beat of someone else's drummer? And I think if you have a merger, a good one, like we just had, then what you're doing is you're leveraging those people. You're not impacting their freedom. You're leveraging the good parts of what they're doing, not coming in big change man.
Speaking of freedom, how has the culture been by working from home? What do you think about it? You mandated a certain amount of time in the office. Does the culture do what you want it to do when people aren't coming to the office?
Well, Lisa and I work in the Cincinnati office. We've got great space in the Scripps Center. It's a lot of natural light. We went to small offices. We had our lawyers get rid of paper for a year before we moved over it. And the beer fridge is always open, and people tend to gravitate to those areas. But there are times when people work remotely, and that also works as well. There's lots of ways to engage. I'm going to see a lot of people tonight I haven't seen in a long time. So I need to make time for that. My wife knows that's important, and that's what we're going to do tonight, and she's going to be all part of it, and it's going to be fun. I walk around the office a lot. Fortunately, in Cincinnati, we have a lot of people there Monday through Thursday. But they are there, and probably 75 to 80% of the folks, so I can see them. But I have a habit. If I go and walking around and someone's not there, I just sit in their chair and I call them on a cell phone. That's the way you engage. It's the way you check in with them, someone you haven't seen for a while. So I think there are ways to do that, although I think you'll see the pendulum is constantly swinging as to whether people are coming back and not. But again, hopefully people come back because they want to be there. And if you're able to achieve that, that's when you're able to retain people and grow people, and the word gets out like, hey, this is a pretty cool place to be, someplace where I can be, all that I want to be. I can be the best version of myself. So hopefully that just fits right in with the remote working.
Believe it or not, we are close to an hour. I know. And we haven't even got to ask you about what in the world is AC.
Oh, jeez. Okay, so did you see that, or you Googled me?
No, it's on your LinkedIn profile.
Start it. I don't know that either. Okay, so I grew up fishing. My grandfather was a prolific fisherman. I grew up fishing with him. My brother took to it better than I did, but nonetheless, I'm a person. And this is a lure that we have a place in Canada, and we every year. This is a lure that we use since I was little. I've had this lure. They were handmade by a man named Art Schulteis in Okeana, Ohio, since 1960. And he passed away 2 years ago, October. And had actually approached him about buying the business before he passed. He was 6 or 97. Fantastic guy. And he said, no, it's what keeps me alive. I'm not selling the business. And so after he passed away, he did say, when I pass, my son, I inherit the business. And, he's going to inherit the business and he can do with it what he wants. So such a nice family. And anyway, my siblings and I bought this fishing lure business from them, and I am strictly their legal assistants. And they were here, say I could work harder at all things. But my brother's the one, he's hand making them. He's learned how to hand make these things and our way out through sell them. And it's been a really ride. It's fun as a business lawyer to be doing all this from the ground up and watch all the struggles of startup. Should have brought you a lure. I don't have any.
As long as you keep the day job.
Yeah, got to keep the day job. Oh yeah. So, do you fish? Does anybody here fish?
Canada every year fish with my grandfather.
It is favorite times.
I only have one more question. Both of you. See, Greta's got more. If you look back to 1L, Lisa and Ken, what would you tell that 1L that they should not be so worried?
Oh, you go first.
I would say not be overly worried about being perfect at everything. I would say instead go out, get involved in a variety of things. Pick a place. As I said, my first wife was not from here and I wasn't from here. And we said, let's just go find a city and have some fun, raise a family, see if we can make it a little better. And I think in order to do that, you've got to be willing to get out of your comfort zone. and explore some things. And I think sometimes we think there is a path, and you go to law schools and you are looking for that path, when the reality is there's no path. You make the path.
You've both been at the same firm your whole careers. That's becoming rarer and rarer. I mean, of the 30 people that have sat in front of those mics, might be third and fourth who only worked at one place.
Yeah, that says something about our firm.
I hope.
Yeah, it does. It does to me. I'm naturally a grass person, but I am in what I do. If I had to give my 1L, if I had to give myself advice as a 1L, I would say don't feel like you have to have it all figured out, because the tide will take you. Sometimes in ways that you're not even intending to go. You'll end up having the ability to do love. Didn't talk about the fact that I changed practice groups 3 times. I'm kind of like the firm joke for that because I did. And then they like, oh, you stay inning next, go to real estate. And I say I'm done with that. I've moved enough times, but that's part of why I'm still at this firm, is it gave me the freedom to follow what I was interested in. And I was a partner when I switched to corporate. So they took a bet on me to change my practice. And we're happy with
We are.
so that's really the key. You don't have to have it all figured out. And thanks for letting 2 Ohio State grads come talk to you guys. You guys are UC is where we get most of our talent from, and there's some fantastic talent that we have.
Okay, well, thanks everyone. That survives the cutting room.
Thank you guys.